Vintners spring weekend. We are really pleased to host this morning's seminar. 2 years ago, an article was written in Edibles Santa Barbara about Zaca Mesa University. And it was a profile of all these great winemakers that had, at one point or another, worked for Zaca Mesa.
I've followed these gentlemen up here in Zaca Mesa since the mid-90s, and I really am proud to be able to say that, and that we've been friends for a long time, all of us. And that's why when I read that article in Santa Barbara Edible, I was just blown away by it, because it's such an interesting story about Zaca Mesa Winery that a lot of people just do not know this story. And today you're going to find out a lot more about that and the characters that were involved, obviously. I want to hand this over to Ken. A little quick story just about Ken. Is just, he was the first winemaker at Zaca Mesa that was really hired to be there, but it's kind of an interesting story how he fell in love with wine and how he got there in the first place. So I'm going to let Ken tell that story, so enjoy this.
That is how I actually ended up getting to know some of the growers pretty well. And Marshall Ream, who owns Zaca Mesa, decided that he wanted to build a winery. He asked me to help him with that. So in the real estate world, I had a little bit of experience with some design office buildings and so forth. So I kind of played around with the design, picked out all the equipment, hired some incredible guys, young, passionate guys. Well, at least you're a young man.
No more.
I wish.
Hairstyles have changed too.
Yeah, they have. But it really clicked. The energy and the dynamic, cosmos that was happening at that point.
I started working there in '78. I had a really glamorous job bottling wine. I was the only person in the valley that had experience on the line that Zaca Mesa bought. I worked 6 hours for Fred Brander, bottling his 1976 Gewürztraminer. That 6 hours gave me the #1 job possibility of anyone in the county. And Ken was nice enough to hire me. I had no chemical background. I studied at UC Santa Barbara to become a lawyer. And I think the world is better to have one more mediocre winemaker than one more mediocre lawyer, for sure. So in '78, we started making wine, and I think we had it pretty well organized during that period of time. Ken had made small lots of wine experimentally from some of the grapes in the area, and we had some ideas about what we wanted to do, and we were kind of growing them together. The only thing we didn't really know was that when the abuleometer sank and got to 0, that didn't mean that your wine was dry. And that's the reason Bob and I might be a little bit upset with the amount of sugar we left in our Rieslings during that period of time. And the first Chardonnay that we made was sweet. It was so sweet with Nuo that first Chardonnay, and the only time in the history of the wine judgings in Los Angeles, got top gold medal at the Orange County Fair, top gold medal at the LA County Fair. Never happened before. If you won a gold medal at the Orange County Fair, you were a bronze at LA County, because they just looked for different things. One had winemakers judging, the other one had journalists and wine personalities judging. The unfortunate thing, though, was since that wine had sugar, we didn't want to have sugar in any more Chardonnays that we made at Zaca Mesa. We figured out how to make them dry by '79 and '80. We didn't win a gold medal in either one of those years before that. So.
The Kinks were coming to town, like one of my favorite bands, and they hadn't toured in a while. They were going to play at the Santa Barbara Bowl. And I asked my boss, John, if I could have a Sunday off, a couple months in advance of the show. And he said, oh, no problem, I'll cover for you that day. So we put it on the calendar. And a couple months went by, and a few days before the concert, I said, John, you remember that this Sunday I have the day off to go to the Kings concert? And he looked at me and he said, it's the opening of dove hunting season. I'm going dove hunting. And I said, well, I'm going to the Kings concert. And he said, well, if the store doesn't open on Sunday, you're fired. And I said, okay, I'll see you on Monday. So on Monday morning, I went in, he handed me my check, shook my hand, and said, it's the principal. And I said, it's okay, I understand. And I was fired. And that afternoon, his father called me, Marshall being the owner of Zaca Mesa, and said, Bob, I heard what happened. And Jim had gone to the King concert with me. He was the instigator in this whole process. Jim had kind of interceded, talking to Ken, talking to Marshall, letting them know what happened. And Marshall called me and said, we'd like to hire you at Zaca Mesa. So on the same day that I was fired by the son, I was hired by the father to be the first tour guide at Zaca Mesa. And back in September of 1979, we didn't get a lot of tourists there, so most of my time was spent working in the cellar. It was right before harvest. We were doing a lot of bottling. So I was working on the bottling line, and then, you know, if the tourists showed up, I would stop working on the bottling line and show them around and, you know, pour them some wine over the top of the barrel. And if they wanted to buy something, I'd write it up in a little duplicate book. Yeah, exactly. And with a cash box, and yeah, it was very primitive bit of work. And then harvest started. And most of my time was spent working harvest, working in the cellar, learning how to take care of barrels, learning how to rack tanks, learning how to operate equipment, etc. Basically learning how to make wine. And Jim was kind of my mentor. He was my immediate boss. Ken was his boss, but I really answered more to Jim, and really learned a lot about what to do and what not to do. You know, it was a very experimental phase of not only Zaca Mesa, but Santa Barbara County. It was such a new growing area. We were still figuring a lot of stuff out.
So came back, was accepted to graduate school in Vintnology, and just kind of had this life that went off. Is like I was very fortunate to work with winemakers that were hands-on, and this is the route I want to go. And right around the same time, I got a call from Clay Brock. He was at Edna Valley, was going to go over to Zaca Mesa and say, hey, I need to assemble a new crew. Would you be interested in coming on and revamp the lab? Zaca had gone through kind of a dark period. There wasn't a steady winemaker for some time. So that was in January 17th of 2001. I packed up LA and I moved up to Santa Maria. And I gave myself 2 years at best. I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work. A kid from LA coming to the Central Coast in a small town. But then I had no idea that I was going to be a part of this history, this legacy. I mean, to me, Zaca Mesa, I knew the wines of Zaca Mesa, but I didn't know the culture of Zaca Mesa. And I was very fortunate to align myself with individuals that, you know, really taught me the culture, not just of winemaking and grape growing, but of community, and that's what we're carrying on today. You know, I'm riding on the coattails of the gentleman sitting here, and then there's also individuals that are not here that really kind of set the tone for Zaca Mesa. What I'm doing now at Zaca is hopefully carrying that torch and carrying on the legacy of Rhone varietals. We feel very strongly about that, and I hope Ken and Bob can talk more. I really enjoyed getting the perspective of Ken and Bob, because I've heard so many stories throughout the valley, so it's nice to hear it directly of some of the history of Zaca, the building of Zaca, and some of the planting of Zaca.